Yo, what's good to Skano? I think a lot of people, I know I'm not the only one. I know. It's a lot of people walking around with a dark agent. And I've spoken on this before. And I'm not sure how this works. I'm not sure if it's certain people. I'm not sure if, I guess some people are going to be aware of it and others, you oblivious. I have spoken on how I was, you know, approached by an angel of Satan, a demonic entity. I don't want to keep using the term angel. It wasn't no angel. A demonic entity, man, a dark force. And whether or not people believe in these things, that's. But there's some other people out there that have experienced this. I'm convinced of it. Now, in my case, and let me start by saying, I don't think you have to have a certain type of nature. I do think people that have a darker nature are more susceptible to this. And at this time, leading up to this time, I must say that I had, some dark characteristics, obsessed with death, obsessed with violence, and so I think I was, highly susceptible to this demonic attack. And that's what it was. Like I said, I've spoken on this before. And I'm comfortable speaking about it. This is real, man. Spiritual warfare is real. Uh, you know, it's often subtle. I don't believe most of us are even aware of what's going on, as far as the spiritual aspect of things and how your spirit is constantly under attack. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're a good natured person, a good hearted person, you know. But as I was saying, I knew I drew. In time, I've come to understand certain things about this. And I understand that I drew this entity, unknowingly. You know what I'm saying? So, but my grandmother, my father, even though he was in the streets, he still had a church background. And I was taught how to pray at an early age, and I went to church often, and so I knew instinctively when I was, approached. And like I said, I'm not gonna go into detail about it again, but I knew instinctively to start praying, and I just, like I said, kept saying Jesus, Jesus over and over. You know what I'm saying? And that presence, in a matter of a moment, just dissipated. Because it was so you could feel. You know what I'm saying? You could feel the presence of this evil. But as I said, man, moving on in life, certain things I've looked back and wondered, did I dispel it for good? Did it reap? Because or and I think often it's just our nature. I can't put it on no type of dark influence, or it was my nature that drew that agent. This shit sound crazy, huh? Man, there are dark demonic entities all around us. Just like there are, angelic, you know, agents of Christ. It's good and evil, man. And they all around us. you know, looking to tap in to the darkest aspects of our nature, because all of us by nature we have some corruption. It don't mean that you necessarily, it's levels to it, obviously, but it's, for some people it's going to be subtle, and others you can sense it. I don't know about y'all, man, but I'm highly perceptive to energy, man. I always have been before I even understood, before I even understood the transferal of energy. And I could pick up on people's energy, their nature. It's a gift and a curse, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm some divine entity, or I'm a person, man, just like anyone else. But I think it's some people that's more highly in tune to the spiritual realm, and there's certain people, it's people that's just living completely through the flesh. If it ain't involving the flesh, they are, blind to it. And there's other people that sense energy, and y'all know what I'm talking about. And y'all know damn well that it's a lot of people walking around. You have met them. You might have, some of y'all, you may be married with them. You may have had kids with people like this. They just got dark energy. Maybe you didn't sense it initially. Maybe you did, but it was somewhat like seductive to you. The thing about dark energy, it is seductive. Satan is very seductive. How you thinking so many people is just, they soul is going to be, seduced right to hell, man. Because Satan has a way about making, wickedness and sin seem sexy and seductive, and tap into our inner, you know what I'm saying, our most primal instincts, which is self-gratification, you know what I'm saying, and violence. So there's no mistake why you look around and sexual deviancy and violence is so prevalent. And it's a lot of us just walking around with dark energy. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got to be careful who, obviously some people just blind to this. They don't realize the people you lay with, it's just not about imprinting. It's about spiritual energy transfer. You done slept with somebody that may have had a demonic entity, and you don't realize that, these things you carry with you the remainder of your life. And it affects your choices, it affects your mood, your thought process, your wavelength. You know what I'm saying? Shit sound crazy, right? Yeah, because I thought I was crazy for a long time. I didn't really, people used to tell me I was crazy, so I started to think I was crazy. But do crazy people really know they crazy? But I understand. So some people are going to become aware of it, and if you are, you obviously you can, you know, take steps to minimize that or completely eradicate it. I have not yet reached that point where I've completely eradicated, but muted it. But there's a lot of people in society bathing in it, and I understand. Some of y'all aware. Some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know exactly who you are. You know what I'm saying? You know. And you embraced it. It's a mantra. You might not be putting it out there, but you know. So, it is what it is. As always, good versus evil. Not just, in society, but that battle within, each and every one of us. 216 Kano.